What would happen if humanity's fury was unleashed across the galaxy? What if all the injustices, insults, and betrayals stacked up, only to trigger a chain of events that would shake the very foundation of galactic diplomacy? In a galaxy filled with advanced alien species, sophisticated technologies, and powerful alliances, humanity had always been seen as an underdog, small, relatively young, and yet full of potential. But this perception was about to change drastically. The Galactic Council, a body representing the dominant alien civilizations, had crossed a line. They had underestimated humanity, and in doing so, had triggered an explosive response, one that would echo through the cosmos. The year was 2932, and humanity, though still young in galactic terms, had already proven its resilience. Earth had evolved from a primitive, war-torn planet into a force to be reckoned with. The Galactic Council, however, viewed humans as nothing more than a nuisance, a barely tolerable species. Yet the Council had underestimated the one thing they had failed to take into account: the depth of human resolve, the fierceness that burns in the hearts of those who have been pushed too far. One mistake by the Council was all it took, and it sparked a fury that would make the entire galaxy tremble. Every great journey starts with a few brave explorers. Right now, HFY ApexChronicles is just beginning, and your support means everything. If you enjoy unraveling the mysteries of the universe, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us grow this community together. In the beginning, it all seemed like a typical intergalactic political decision. The Galactic Council, an alliance of the most powerful civilizations, had been convening to discuss the future of the galaxy. At first glance, the topic at hand seemed trivial: trade routes, resource distribution, and minor territorial disputes. But one issue stood out. The Council had voted to restrict Earth's access to the galactic network, a decision that would effectively isolate humanity from the interstellar community. To the Council, this decision was simply a matter of balancing power. After all, Earth's influence had grown over the last few centuries, and it was beginning to infringe on the interests of the established galactic powers. The humans had gained advanced technologies, developed military strategies that were starting to rival the best in the galaxy, and had begun exploring space at an alarming rate. All of this was seen as a threat by the Council's senior members, who had maintained their dominance for eons. But what the Council didn't understand was that humans had learned the hard way. From the rubble of their past wars, they had forged a new resolve, a thirst for justice that was not easily silenced. The decision to isolate Earth was the catalyst that triggered humanity's fury. It wasn't just a political move, it was an insult. The Council had dared to treat humanity as though they were expendable, a species too young to matter, too insignificant to be heard. And so, humanity responded in the only way they knew how, with unrelenting determination, strength, and a hunger for retribution. The first signs of humanity's fury were subtle. Rumors began to spread of a new weapon, one unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. The Galactic Council dismissed these rumors as nothing more than propaganda. After all, Earth was still a relatively isolated species, and their technology was considered far behind that of the more established civilizations. But what the Council didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. A secret program had been underway for years, hidden deep within the bowels of Earth's most secure military bases. It was a project designed not only to defend humanity, but to give them the power to strike back when necessary. The key to this program was a warship unlike any other, a massive, heavily armed vessel, capable of outmatching entire fleets of alien ships. Humanity had learned from its past mistakes. They knew they had to be prepared, not just for defense, but for a retaliatory strike that would send a clear message: never underestimate Earth again. As whispers of this new weapon spread, the Council began to take notice. There was fear in the air, palpable tension that gripped the entire galaxy. Earth was no longer a fledgling species. Now, they were a force to be reckoned with. But there was something else happening behind the scenes. While the Council debated and discussed, another force was gathering strength, one that had been quietly working within the shadows of the Galactic Council itself. As the tensions escalated, something strange began to happen within the Galactic Council itself. Behind the polished veneer of political debates and diplomatic speeches, a covert faction of the Council's most influential members started to form. They were the elites, the powerful few who had been keeping a close eye on Earth's progress for years. They understood that humanity's growth wasn't just a matter of technological advancement. It represented a shift in the balance of power in the galaxy. And this shift, they feared, would soon leave their carefully curated control in jeopardy. The human response to the Council's decision wasn't just about fighting back for their place in the galaxy. It was about proving that humanity's strength could no longer be ignored. The warship that Earth had developed, named Eclipse, was the epitome of this new power. It was a massive ship, far larger than any conventional warship, brimming with weaponry that could decimate entire fleets in seconds. It had been built in secret, its capabilities tested only in the most confidential environments, and its existence was known only to a select few. The Eclipse was humanity's statement to the galaxy. You will respect us, or you will regret it. While the Council remained largely unaware of the true scale of the threat, whispers of Eclipse began to leak. But these weren't the usual rumors. These were disturbing, detailed accounts of a ship with capabilities beyond anything the Council had ever seen. Its weapon systems alone were described as capable of tearing apart even the most fortified shields. Its stealth technology allowed it to slip through the radar of even the most advanced detection systems. And its command structure, led by some of the best and brightest humans from the military and scientific sectors, was unbeatable. As more information leaked, panic began to spread across the Council's ranks. The elites, those who had long been pulling the strings behind the scenes, began to act swiftly and decisively. Their first move was to send a fleet of ships, veteran ships, seasoned in countless campaigns, to Earth's orbit, hoping to intimidate the human government and squash the rumors before they gained any real traction. They had underestimated just how far humanity had come, and now they were about to find out just how badly they had miscalculated. The fleet arrived on Earth's doorstep in the dead of night, their massive forms looming like shadows in the void. The Council's elites expected a display of power, a humbling gesture to remind humanity of its place. But Earth, with its surprising resilience and readiness, had been preparing for this very moment. The Eclipse was ready, stationed just beyond Earth's orbit, waiting for its moment to strike. What the Council had failed to understand was that this wasn't a simple military confrontation. It was a reckoning. Humanity, long underestimated and often belittled, was about to make its mark on the galaxy in a way no one could have predicted. But it wasn't just about the Eclipse. The warship was part of something larger, a movement that had spread across humanity's military, scientific, and civilian sectors alike. Earth had become united in a single cause: to defend their home and to make it clear that they would no longer be silent. The Council, for all its power, had made a grave mistake. They had thought they could manipulate and control humanity like they had done with countless species before. What they hadn't accounted for was humanity's innate drive to fight for survival, to fight for justice, and to protect their own. They had awoken a sleeping giant, and now the galaxy would feel the consequences. As the Eclipse powered up its weapons systems, Earth's leaders sent a clear message. The fleet from the Galactic Council, massive and imposing as it was, had no chance. What followed was a series of events that none could have predicted. The first salvo from the Eclipse was unlike anything seen in the galaxy. Plasma beams, ion disruptors, and energy torpedoes unleashed at impossible speeds. The Council's ships didn't stand a chance. The Eclipse fired with precision, each shot calculated and devastating. In a matter of hours, the fleet that had come to intimidate Earth was nothing but debris floating in space, drifting aimlessly in the vacuum. The galaxy had just witnessed the first taste of humanity's fury, a fury born of centuries of struggle, of betrayal, and of a determination to never be underestimated again. But even as Earth celebrated its victory, the Council wasn't finished. In fact, this was just the beginning. What humanity didn't know was that the elites within the Council had already begun to regroup. The eclipse had proven its power, but it had also made humanity a target. The elites would not allow a small young species to disrupt the established order they had spent millennia crafting. This was far from over. Meanwhile, the news of the eclipse's destruction spread quickly throughout the galaxy. Other civilizations began to take notice, some in fear, others in awe. The message was clear. Earth had risen, and the galaxy would have to take humanity seriously from now on. But even as the dust settled, something darker began to stir. The elites had their own secret weapon, one that could rival even the might of the eclipse. The stage was set for an all-out war, and humanity, for the first time in centuries, was in the center of it. As the aftermath of the eclipse's first strike rippled through the galaxy, the shockwaves reached the farthest corners of the cosmos. Earth had not only defended itself, but it had also shattered the illusion that the Galactic Council held absolute power. For the first time, the Council's strength was called into question, and it was no longer just about the eclipse. Humanity had ignited a firestorm of political maneuvering, secret alliances, and covert operations, all fueled by the fear that a new power was rising, one that could dismantle the existing galactic order. But while the galaxy reeled from the destruction of the fleet, a darker, more dangerous force was taking shape within the Galactic Council. The elite faction, the ones who had truly orchestrated the decision to isolate Earth, had not only been humbled, but also enraged. The Council's greatest fear wasn't just that humanity had created a weapon of mass destruction. It was that Earth was becoming a symbol of something more dangerous: defiance. In their minds, the galaxy had been living in a fragile peace for millennia, and a single species disrupting that balance could lead to chaos, and perhaps even revolution. Behind closed doors, the elites began to regroup. These were the minds who controlled the galaxy's most powerful military forces, its economic systems, and its technological advancements. But now they faced an unprecedented situation. Earth, in their eyes, was a rogue element, and the Council had failed to neutralize it before it was too late. Worse still, they feared that other species, those who had been quietly watching humanity's rise, might follow Earth's lead. The Council couldn't afford to let that happen. But the elites weren't foolish. They knew that sending another fleet to Earth would be disastrous. The eclipse had shown its might, and the humans had demonstrated that they could, and would fight back. So instead of relying on brute force, the elites turned to more subtle means: subterfuge, sabotage, and alliances with fringe factions who felt threatened by humanity's growing influence. It was time to play the long game. Their first move was to begin sowing division within the human ranks. They reached out to key figures, diplomats, military commanders, and influential politicians who had once worked closely with Earth's leadership. Through these intermediaries, the Council began to spread disinformation, exploiting any weaknesses they could find. They painted humanity's military leadership as overly aggressive, too quick to resort to violence, and incapable of maintaining long-term peace. The Council's plan was simple: if they could turn humanity's own leaders against one another, they could create internal chaos that would weaken Earth from within. But humanity, despite its young age in galactic terms, had a secret weapon that the Council could not have anticipated: unity. Unlike the Council, which had been divided into various factions and political players all vying for power, humanity had one fundamental trait that bound them together: survival. Earth's history was one of constant struggle, of overcoming adversity in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. This was a species that had been tested time and time again, by war, by natural disasters, by political strife, and had always come out stronger. And now, in the face of the Council's attempts to undermine them, humanity would prove that their resolve was unbreakable. While the elites within the Council worked their insidious plot, a different force was emerging within humanity. The leaders of Earth's united military front began to make plans of their own. They had seen the writing on the wall. The Council was not going to stop, and its elites would stop at nothing to destroy humanity's newfound position. So they began to build their own alliances with other civilizations, those who had seen the true power of the eclipse and recognized the potential threat that humanity posed to the Council's hegemony. One of the most surprising alliances came from the Emeri, a reclusive, highly intelligent species known for their advanced cybernetic technologies. The Emeri had watched Earth's rise with cautious optimism. Though they were known to avoid conflict at all costs, they understood the importance of balance in the galaxy. When they saw the destruction of the Council's fleet, they realized that humanity could be an ally, someone who could challenge the entrenched power of the Council. The Emeri, who had long been neutral in galactic affairs, offered humanity access to their technological secrets, including cutting-edge cybernetic enhancements and quantum encryption systems. This alliance would prove invaluable as humanity began to prepare for the next phase of their struggle. But it wasn't just the Emeri who came to humanity's aid. Other species, some of whom had been oppressed or marginalized by the Council, began to take notice of the humans. The Quarlock, a species of amphibious beings who had long suffered under the Council's economic exploitation, sent emissaries to Earth with a proposal for mutual defense. The Zonari, a nomadic warrior race, pledged their support in exchange for Earth's assistance in freeing their people from Council-controlled territories. Slowly, but surely, Earth began to form a coalition of like-minded civilizations, one that would serve as the backbone of their resistance against the Council's inevitable counterattack. In the meantime, the elites within the Council had begun to feel the pressure. Earth's alliances were growing, and whispers of the human resistance were beginning to spread throughout the galaxy. The eclipse wasn't just a ship, it had become a symbol of defiance, of humanity's unyielding will to fight for their place in the stars. And the Council's most powerful members knew that they couldn't allow this movement to grow. They had to strike quickly before humanity's influence spread too far. As they prepared for their next move, the elites within the Council secretly began constructing a fleet of their own, one designed specifically to deal with the human threat. It was a fleet composed of the most advanced ships in the galaxy, outfitted with experimental technologies that could counter the eclipse's devastating weapons. This new fleet, codenamed Ascendant Legion, was the Council's last hope to maintain control. But as the Ascendant Legion began to take shape, Earth's leaders were already aware of the Council's plans. The human resistance, bolstered by their new allies, began to prepare for the inevitable war. The stage was set. Humanity had proven its strength once, but the Council wasn't finished. The ultimate confrontation was drawing near, and every free species in the galaxy. This war had become about more than just Earth. It was about a new future, one in which the galaxy would no longer be under the thumb of the Council's oppressive regime. At Earth's military command center, the final battle plan was being devised. The leaders knew the odds were slim, but they were not about to back down. They had learned that in this war, every advantage counted, even the smallest one. The Eclipse, now upgraded with a new experimental weapon, the Starshard Cannon, was humanity's last hope. This weapon, unlike anything the Council had ever seen, was capable of targeting the core of a star and destabilizing it. The Starshard Cannon had been the result of years of research, combining the most advanced technologies from Earth and its allies. The weapon's potential was massive, and it could prove to be the game-changer humanity so desperately needed. However, its use was risky. It could destroy entire systems if miscalculated, and there was no margin for error. Meanwhile, the Ascendant Legion continued its march toward Earth, seemingly unstoppable. Their fleets were vast and varied, from colossal dreadnoughts capable of obliterating entire planets to sleek fighter craft that darted like deadly predators through the void. The Council's strategy had always been to overwhelm and outlast. Their forces were designed for long, sustained engagements, using their superior numbers and firepower to grind down any resistance. But this time, something was different. The Council had underestimated the humans' ability to adapt, and now they were paying the price. One key factor in humanity's success was the growing unity between the various species of the Coalition. Though the Council had once sought to keep the galaxy divided, humanity's resistance had brought together races that had long been enemies. The Quarlock, once a warrior race known for their bloodthirsty ways, had become some of the most loyal and fiercest allies of humanity. Their unmatched combat skills were instrumental in the success of numerous raids, and their tactics had thrown the Ascendant Legion into disarray more than once. Meanwhile, the Umeri, with their advanced technology and unparalleled intelligence, had provided Earth with the means to outthink and outmaneuver the Ascendant Legion at every turn. The Zonari, a race of beings with unmatched physical strength and stamina, had become the frontline warriors of the Resistance, striking fear into the hearts of the Council's soldiers. As the final confrontation approached, both sides knew that the battle would not be fought just in space. It would be a war of ideologies, a clash of civilizations. The Council had relied on its superior technology and power to maintain order. They believed that the galaxy could only function under their rule, that only they had the right to impose peace through force. But humanity, and their newfound allies, had a different vision. For them, freedom was worth the sacrifice. Every life lost in this war was a testament to their desire for a future free from tyranny. The final battle would take place at the heart of the Ascendant Legion's power, their command center, a massive station located in the orbit of a gas giant known as Helios. This station, known as the Spire, was heavily defended by an entire fleet and was the nerve center of the Council's operations in the galaxy. If Earth's forces could breach its defenses, it would deal a devastating blow to the Council's war effort. But that would not be easy. The Spire was surrounded by a formidable defense perimeter, including massive shields and a swarm of automated drones designed to prevent any breach. To make matters worse, the Council had prepared a new weapon, the Graviton Disruptor. This weapon, capable of bending space-time itself, could obliterate any ship within a specific radius, making it nearly impossible for humanity's forces to get close. Humanity's final plan was audacious. A small strike force would infiltrate the defenses around the Spire, while the main fleet engaged the Ascendant Legion in a desperate attempt to distract them. The strike force would consist of Earth's best pilots, most elite soldiers, and most importantly, a squad of Quarlock warriors who had earned a reputation for their stealth and combat prowess. Their mission was clear: disable the Graviton Disruptor and sabotage the station from within. If they succeeded, the final strike could be launched. As the battle unfolded, both sides fought with everything they had. The skies above Earth were ablaze with the fire of battle, as thousands of ships engaged in a dance of death. The Ascendant Legion's ships loomed large, their sheer size and power overwhelming at first glance. Yet, humanity's forces were determined. The Eclipse led the charge, its weapons tearing through the defenses of the Council's ships. It wasn't just the technology that made humanity's forces effective, it was their strategy. The human ships moved with precision, taking out key targets while avoiding the brunt of the enemy's fire. Despite their determination, Earth's forces were being pushed to the limit. The Ascendant Legion's firepower was immense, and even with the help of the Coalition's forces, it seemed as if Earth's forces would be overwhelmed. But then, just as the battle seemed lost, a glimmer of hope appeared. The strike force, led by a team of humans and Quarlock, successfully infiltrated the defenses around the Spire and began their sabotage mission. They fought through waves of Council drones and elite soldiers, their will to win pushing them forward despite the overwhelming odds. With each passing minute, the stakes grew higher, and the tension in the air became almost palpable. In a last-ditch effort to turn the tide, the star-shard cannon on the Eclipse was fired, its energy crackling through space as it tore toward the Spire. But would it be enough to break the Council's stranglehold? Would humanity's courage and ingenuity be enough to defeat a seemingly invincible enemy? The tension was unbearable. The Eclipse had fired its star-shard cannon, and its massive beam of energy sliced through the void toward the spire, the nerve center of the Ascendant Legion's vast military operations. But the battle was far from over. The star-shard cannon was humanity's greatest hope, but its effects were still uncertain. As the weapon charged up, the Eclipse and its fleet fought valiantly to keep the Ascendant Legion at bay. Their numbers were dwindling, and the Graviton Disruptor was a constant threat. Every passing moment made the odds of success seem slimmer. Meanwhile, deep within the spire, the strike force, composed of the finest soldiers from Earth and its allies, was pushing through the Council's defenses. The Graviton Disruptor was their target, the key to breaking the Council's hold over the galaxy. The strike force's journey into the spire had been fraught with peril. After the initial wave of battle drones and automated turrets, the team had found themselves face to face with the Ascendant Legion's elite soldiers, warriors trained for years to protect the heart of the Legion's operations. But humanity's will to survive and their unique ability to think outside the box had pushed them through. Every time they faced overwhelming odds, they found a way to turn the tables. The Quarlock warriors, known for their brutal combat style, were an invaluable asset in this dangerous mission. Their ability to blend into the shadows and strike when least expected gave humanity's forces the edge in the most critical moments. As the strike force pressed forward, the countdown to the spire's destruction began, but time was not on their side. The Graviton Disruptor's countdown was reaching its peak, and soon it would be ready to fire, potentially obliterating Earth's forces in one devastating blow. Inside the spire, the sabotage team worked at breakneck speed, tearing through security measures and avoiding traps set by the Council's engineers. The Graviton Disruptor was a colossal machine, a weapon capable of bending space-time itself. It was designed to create localized gravitational anomalies that could incapacitate entire fleets or, at its peak power, reduce planets to rubble. The Council had used it as a trump card, an all-encompassing weapon that could secure their dominance over the galaxy. But now, the Graviton Disruptor was humanity's greatest threat. If the strike force could disable it, there would be nothing standing between them and victory. The plan was simple: infiltrate the central core, destroy the Graviton Disruptor, and then trigger a chain reaction that would destabilize the spire. But nothing in war was ever simple, especially when the opposition was as formidable as the Ascendant Legion. Despite their success in infiltrating the spire, the sabotage team faced an unexpected complication. The Ascendant Legion had anticipated an attack and set up a contingency plan, an array of emergency reinforcements. Within minutes, the strike force found themselves surrounded by more Council soldiers, their position rapidly becoming untenable. Every member of the team fought with fierce determination, but they knew that they had only one chance to succeed. The mission could not fail. Outside the spire, the Eclipse was barely holding its ground. The Ascendant Legion's ships were relentless, and the Graviton Disruptor was only moments from firing. The Eclipse's shields were beginning to crack, its hull taking hit after hit as it engaged the Ascendant Legion in a desperate attempt to buy time for the strike force. Captain Elias Kor, leader of the Eclipse, stood resolutely at the command center, watching the screens flash with incoming threats. "We hold them off. For Earth. For all of us," he muttered to himself, his voice filled with determination. Despite the mounting pressure, Earth's forces were far from defeated. They had something the Ascendant Legion did not: an unbreakable resolve, a refusal to bend to tyranny. The Eclipse's last-ditch maneuvers were a testament to that spirit. It dove and weaved through enemy fire, its agile frame evading the massive blasts of the Ascendant Legion's fleet. Every time it seemed like the ship would be destroyed, its crew pushed forward, unleashing devastating counterattacks that crippled the enemy's forces. But the final moments of the battle were fast approaching. The countdown to the firing of the Graviton Disruptor was nearly complete. The fate of Earth and the galaxy hung in the balance. As the sabotage team reached the heart of the spire, they encountered the last line of defense: a massive automated sentry that guarded the control core of the Graviton Disruptor. The sentry was a towering machine of death, designed to obliterate any intruders. Armed with plasma cannons and reinforced armor, it seemed invincible. But humanity had a secret weapon, a combination of quick thinking and teamwork. The Korlock warriors engaged the sentry head-on, using their speed and strength to distract it long enough for the human soldiers to plant the explosive charges needed to cripple the graviton disruptor. The battle raged on in close quarters as the team fought with everything they had. But the sentry was powerful, and the stakes were rising. Every second counted. With the charges planted, the sabotage team retreated to a safe distance, but just as the countdown to the explosion began, they realized something was wrong. The Ascendant Legion had triggered a failsafe, a mechanism designed to prevent sabotage at the last moment. The graviton disruptor would fire no matter what. In a final act of defiance, Captain Elias Kor made a fateful decision. With the Eclipse's remaining firepower, he would use the Starshard cannon one last time, targeting the control core of the spire directly. The Eclipse moved into position, its energy reserves dangerously low. The Starshard cannon powered up, and as the beams from the graviton disruptor and the Eclipse's weapon collided, the resulting explosion tore through space in a burst of blinding light. The universe held its breath in those final, heart-stopping moments. The clash of the graviton disruptor's devastating energy pulse and the full might of the Starshard cannon reverberated across the galaxy. Time itself seemed to slow as the shockwave of the collision sent ripples through space, shaking the very fabric of reality. The spire, the crown jewel of the Ascendant Legion's power, shuddered, its defenses crumbling beneath the weight of humanity's fury. The Eclipse, battered and scarred from the endless barrage of enemy fire, stood as a testament to human resilience and resolve. Inside the command center of the Eclipse, Captain Elias Kor gripped the console, his knuckles white from the tension. "We've done it," he whispered, his voice hoarse, as if the weight of the moment had stolen his breath away. But then a sudden realization hit him, a truth that chilled him to the core. The destruction of the spire was only the first victory. The Ascendant Legion was not just a single outpost, not a single powerful enemy fleet. They were a vast and organized force that controlled more than just this one system. They had set their sights on the entire galaxy, and the war was far from over. Even as the spire erupted in a fiery ball of energy, tearing apart its towering structure, the remnants of the Ascendant Legion's forces rallied. They would not give up their conquest so easily. Their ships, though damaged, began to regroup. The Eclipse was barely holding itself together, its shields flickering, and the crew had little time to celebrate their hard-won victory. The galaxy was vast, and a single battle, no matter how monumental, could not end a war of this scale. But humanity's message was clear. They had arrived. The Ascendant Legion's arrogance, their belief in their invincibility, had been shattered. Earth and its allies, led by this ragtag fleet of explorers, scientists, and soldiers, had shown that they could not only survive but thrive in the face of overwhelming odds. The Council's decision to underestimate humanity had been a fatal mistake. As the final explosions from the spire's destruction echoed through space, the remaining Ascendant Legion fleets hesitated. Their command structure had been decimated, their strongest weapon destroyed, and their morale shattered. This was a critical turning point in the war. The Eclipse had done more than just deliver a blow to the heart of the Ascendant Legion. It had ignited a spark of rebellion that would spread like wildfire across the galaxy. On the ground, the sabotage team that had infiltrated the spire made their escape, but not without casualties. The Ascendant Legion's defenders had fought tooth and nail to prevent them from reaching their target, but humanity's ingenuity and perseverance had carried the day. The team, exhausted but victorious, emerged from the wreckage, their mission completed. The graviton disruptor was no more. The Ascendant Legion's reign of terror had been dealt a devastating blow, but it was only the beginning of humanity's quest to liberate the galaxy. Back aboard the Eclipse, Captain Elias Kor surveyed the damage, his mind already racing to the next phase of the war. The Ascendant Legion would regroup, but they now knew that they were no longer invincible. Humanity had proven that it could stand up to the most powerful forces the galaxy had ever known, and the spark of rebellion had already begun to spread. Throughout the galaxy, planets and systems that had once lived under the shadow of the Ascendant Legion now found hope. Humanity's fury had exploded, and the fight was far from over. But this time, the Ascendant Legion would be the ones who trembled in fear. The message was loud and clear. Humanity had arrived, and they were not to be underestimated. As the Eclipse's engines roared to life once more, the crew knew that the hardest battles lay ahead. The war was not over, and the path to ultimate victory would be long and hard. But for the first time in centuries, the galaxy's balance of power had shifted. The Ascendant Legion would never again see humanity as a mere nuisance to be wiped away. The Starshard cannon's blast had not just torn through the heart of the enemy's empire, it had shattered their perception of what humanity could accomplish. The galaxy was on the brink of a new era, and humanity, once on the edge of extinction, had found its fury. "Prepare for the next battle," Captain Kor said, his voice filled with a fire that would not be extinguished. "This is just the beginning." The Eclipse jumped into hyperspace, its crew ready for whatever came next. The Ascendant Legion's fleets might regroup, but humanity's spirit could never be broken. Call to action. If you're ready to witness the next chapter of humanity's rise, make sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and leave a comment down below. What do you think will happen next in the battle for the galaxy? Will humanity's fury continue to shake the stars? Your thoughts could shape the future of this journey. Don't forget to subscribe and join us for the next chapter in the HFY ApexChronicles. Together, we'll uncover the mysteries of the universe. Humanity's fury has exploded, and the Ascendant Legion has learned the hard way that Earth and its allies are not to be underestimated. With every passing battle, humanity grows stronger, more resolute in its mission to free the galaxy from the tyranny of the Council. The Eclipse's victory is only the beginning. What comes next? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. The galaxy will never be the